Appreciate that. Gentleman yields back. Mr. Donalds of Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm actually glad I get to go last. I heard a lot in today's hearing. Obviously, we have some serious questions that Congress is going to need to address. And let's just be very clear, the SEC or the CFTC or frankly any other agency has not been empowered by Congress to just decide this stuff on the fly. Sorry, relative commissioners and chairmen that exist around this town, we've not authorized you to do that yet. A couple things. One, I found it interesting that now Sam Bankman-Fried is now the ghost of Christmas past. You know, what happened at FTX is unconscionable, never tolerated, but that's accounting fraud. That's something that was contemplated under Sarbanes-Oxley after the Enron scandal. So you have that. If we're going to talk about Russia avoiding our sanctions regime using cryptocurrencies, then maybe the administration should have paid attention to Russia's military buildup on the Ukrainian border after the debacle that was the withdrawal from Afghanistan. If we're going to talk about the fentanyl crisis, maybe the administration should actually secure the border as opposed to just complaining about fentanyl all the time. And with respect to Filecoin or anything else, I think one of the most fundamental problems we have in this building are members of Congress trying to justify why an American would choose to buy a product that they want to acquire. We're not talking about narcotics here. We're not talking about food that you ingest. We're not talking about contact lenses that go in your eye. We are talking about a digital currency or assets or token that they might choose to buy with their own United States dollar. I thought that was okay in the US. But I see not all is reality here on Capitol Hill. Mr. Gorfine, question for you. Is the CFTC, or the federal government for that matter, currently equipped to serve as a market regulator for digital assets?
So the CFTC, by virtue of overseeing futures, swaps, options that are predicated on commodities, gains very good understanding of commodities and the underlying markets and the asset. They currently don't have that authority to regulate the spot market, but as I noted earlier, there are some unique characteristics of digital commodities that may make it reasonable to say we need to have federal market supervision.
So I like your answer, but I'm also down to 2 minutes and 36 seconds. I want to hone in on one thing. The operative word in your sentence is may. Does the CFTC, if this is the agency that looks like closest to be able, do they have the manpower, the technical knowledge, the expertise to adequately be a market regulator of digital assets?
Yes, they already are, and they do have that expertise. They do have that knowledge. Chairman Benham has been testifying as such. So this is something that they may need additional resources given the size and scope of digital commodity markets. But they do have that expertise, and the professional staff there is well equipped to understand the underlying commodity market.
Okay. Mr. Zweighorn, can you elaborate on some of the incompatibilities between the digital asset marketplace and traditional financial structure marketplaces?
Sure. Well, so as we've talked about many times in this hearing, there are lots of digital assets that have functional uses. So in order to use Filecoin, for example, I don't believe Filecoin is a security, but if somebody did, if Congress was to say, or the SEC was to say Filecoin is a security, then everybody that touches Filecoin would need to be a regulated intermediary.
Hey, real quick, let me just say, as a member of Congress, Filecoin is not a security. But continue, go ahead.
Better than me. So if you were to buy Filecoin because you want to use it, you want to store files, you can only buy it through a registered broker-dealer. The system through which it gets transferred to you would need to be a registered exchange to actually find the buyer and seller, and a clearing agency in order to actually send it to you. And those basically make it impossible to use for its intended purpose because you're not going to have all of the entities involved in facilitating storage of data be SEC regulated for financial services activities.
Okay. Last question, Mr. Rivera, given that Congress is already behind the curve regarding blockchain technology, how do we ensure what is proposed today applies down the road?
Applies what?
How do we ensure that some of the topics and conversations that are being talked about today in this committee can apply down the road? What do you think is probably a best course of action for us?
We want collaboration by Congress, by members of this committee, to take a very good look at the industry and understand all the different issues at play and come up with constructive legislation that regulators can then apply meaningfully to multiple different use cases and different types of assets. So we need principled legislation that is that's bipartisan and effective.
All right, I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Donalds. I want to thank